I'm housing you, but you're letting me live here. For a measly sum, look, the words from my husband make my mouth twitch in annoyance.
That's right. You do no housework, sleep for 5 hours, and you're just squatting in Denise's house. But you're like the black sheep of the family. Why don't you just leave?
Black sheep, hun? Who's the real black sheep here? A subtle smile escapes my tightened lips. At my Mill's words, I just don't care anymore. Is that so? Well, if you insist, I'll take my leave. That was the last time I saw my Mile and husband. My name is Carleen Kiviv. I'm 32 and work for a certain company in Boston. It's a pretty big company. Work there earnestly for a decade, and you'll be in a respectable position with a decent income. Years ago, I also married Dennis, who works for a similar-sized company. We live in a newly built house. It must seem like smooth sailing to everyone around us. I met Dennis, who's a year older, through a friend's introduction. First impression, he seemed sincere. He often talked about his mother, and I liked that he valued family. We didn't have a fiery romantic start, but we kinda started dating and then kinda got married. Even after marriage, we had no children because we both needed to continue working. We lived in a house too big for just the two of us, enjoying a comfortable newlywed life. Because we're both working, we often missed each other. However, we made sure to value the time we spent together, and we had no financial problems. I thought we were doing well. Well, until now. Thus, unlike me, who's lived alone since starting college. Dennis lived with his parents until just before our marriage. Born and raised in Boston, both his college and current workplace are not far from his family home. I only know his late father through photos. Dennis was still in high school when his father passed away. Probably he didn't want to leave his mother alone. I met that Mile for the first time at a dinner arranged for both families to meet. Dennis had told me his mother was about the same age as my own, but she looked much younger, a truly beautiful woman.
Nice to meet you, Carleen. My son speaks so highly of you. Please take good care of him.
Busy mother-in-law smiled warmly as she spoke, and I couldn't sense any of the hardship she must have endured after losing her husband. Nice to meet you too, mother-in-law. I'm looking forward to becoming a family. I remember feeling relieved, thinking that this person and I might actually build a good family relationship together. Our home seemed to promise a fulfilling future, always filled with laughter and warmth. Both my parents and my mother-in-law were fully supportive of our marriage, and the preparations moved along surprisingly smoothly. We set the date for the wedding, and our house under construction was nearly complete. Before embarking on our married life, we made some decisions. They agreed we'd both work for a while, so we needed to pre-plan on chores, taking care of mother-in-law, and financial matters. Firstly, chores would be handled by whoever was available at the time. Then, regarding mother-in-law, she was still healthy and had father-in-law's inheritance, so she wouldn't struggle financially. We decided it'd be best if we lived separately. Up to this point, all was good. But then came the issue of money. I thought splitting all expenses, including the mortgage, would be fair. But Dennis had different ideas. Listen to me. Dennis proposed that I handle the mortgage payments while he takes care of other living expenses. This gave me pause. I had heard of couples splitting everything or pooling resources, but Dennis' suggestion was unusual. The monthly mortgage alone is $2,700. I had thought from the beginning that this was too heavy a burden. The 3-story house was too big, even if we were to have children, and the large property, mostly chosen by Dennis, seemed daunting to manage. Looking back, I realized I had already made several wrong choices, but I wasn't thinking clearly at the time. I hadn't won any financial disagreements before marriage, so I convinced myself to agree with Dennis's proposal. In addition to the mortgage, there are other costs like groceries, utility bills, and taxes. I had no idea how much I would regret. That decision later on. Every month, we put all our payments into a joint account in Dennis's name. This includes the mortgage, living expenses, travel costs, and future savings. The monthly withdrawals are hefty, but we're both high earners to begin with. Given our busy work schedules and limited time off, the joint account should have been continually growing. Why isn't there as much money as I expected? I stumbled upon it by chance. I casually opened our savings book to see how much we had saved up, wondering if we had some major expenses. I couldn't recall anything significant that left the possibility that Dennis might have spent on something, but he didn't mention anything during our last family meeting. We both have busy work schedules. I leave before Dennis wakes up, and he comes home after I've gone to bed. So, we often don't get to talk much, even though we live together. But to break through this disconnect, we started having regular family meetings. We discuss big financial decisions, like how to spend our savings and future travel plans. We just had a family meeting a few days ago. Seeing our savings dwindle without hearing anything about it at the meeting is odd. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Scanning through the latest transactions, I realized Dennis hadn't transferred his share of the living expenses for this month. I glanced at the calendar. It's been 3 days since payday. We're supposed to contribute our share by then. Maybe he just forgot? Dennis was coming home late today. I'll ask him gently tomorrow, I thought, and then forgot all about it. I didn't remember until 3 months later. I'll come to think of it, I never actually checked. Did he make the transfer like he was supposed to? Did that thought. I open the drawer in our living room TV stand and pull out the bank book for our joint account, which is under Dennis's name. I flip through the pages and my eyes widen. What's going on here? The balance had decreased even more since last time. A growing sense of distrust fills me. I can hear my own heartbeat ringing in my ears. A sinking feeling crosses my mind, and with trembling fingers, I flip the pages back. My worst fears are confirmed. You've got to be kidding me. Household expenses haven't been transferred for 3 months. Dennis didn't come home until late that night, and we missed each other the next morning. I couldn't confront him due to our conflicting schedules and my growing unease. Finally, I came on the weekend and declared that we're having an emergency family meeting. Dennis reluctantly sits on the living room sofa and looks at me. His face is serious, as if he knows I've discovered the truth.
You know what this is about, don't you?
As much as I wanted to explode in air, I started the conversation as calmly as possible. Dennis nods quietly.
Why haven't the household expenses been paid for the last 3 months?
The truth is,
What Dennis told me was beyond anything I could have imagined. To cut to the chase, Dennis had quit his job without telling me. This all started 4 months ago.
my coworker got promoted before me. Can you believe it? A guy less competent than me. The boss is clueless. The company's a mess.
I was stunned. I couldn't find the words to respond. Sure, it's frustrating to be surpassed by a coworker. I get that. But we have a family and we just built our house. Shouldn't you secure another job before quitting? Isn't that just common sense? I thought he was a man of integrity. That's why I married him. I don't know this man who speaks so foully.
So what's the plan? You are going to find another job, right?
Of course. I want to show them. I'm planning to get a job at an even bigger company, so cover our living expenses till then.
But Dennis seemed unfazed, like he didn't grasp the gravity of the situation. He didn't even apologize. Not that I need an apology, but the sense of betrayal was overwhelming. Everyone has times when they're unhappy at work and want to quit. I don't love my job every single day either. But most was that he didn't even consult me first. So I agreed to cover the expenses, but only for a short time. Dennis seemed to be actively job hunting while I was at work. Initially, I thought it would be fine. There were job magazines on our living room table. I figured he'd find something soon. As months passed, and I began to realize I had been too optimistic. A year went by, and Dennis still hadn't found a job.
You've been supporting me for a year now. Can't you just keep doing it? You're the one with a stable income anyway.
I was already struggling with a mortgage. The cost of living was piling up, making me work harder than ever before. I willingly took on overtime and even worked weekends. I barely had time to breathe, let alone handle chores, and I was sleep-deprived and disoriented. I almost fainted on the train to work today. Dennis's offhand comment didn't sound like a joke to me, and even if it were, I couldn't take it that way. What was the point of our marriage, of me working so hard? I began to lose sight of everything. I'm going out, I mumbled, knowing Dennis probably wouldn't hear me, and headed for the door. Today is another work day. I have to make money no matter what. Hiking my feet to work. That's how I get through. Surviving the day on willpower alone. I finally head home, more exhausted than when the day started. It's already past 10 p.m. and it's dark outside. I'm full. As I push the door open, I notice something unfamiliar in the entranceway. A pile of cardboard boxes. What's this? They're too old and sloppily packed to be delivery boxes. Then, the living room door opened, and Dennis appeared, his face covered in stubble.
Oh, those. They're from my mom. She was having a hard time living alone, so we decided she should move in with us.
What? I didn't hear anything about this. My anger surged. Living together. What on earth is he talking about? Ever since he quit his job without telling me, I've had no idea what he's thinking. I used to worry about his mother living alone, and I even thought we could have a good family relationship. But I didn't know at the time that my seemingly cheerful and pleasant mother-in-law would turn out to be a real piece of work. The same could be said for my husband, too.
What are you talking about? She's my mother. Helping her is a given.
Are you stupid or something? That's the vibe I got. At this point, my opinion doesn't matter anymore. I've had enough of understanding this through my married life. A few days later, my mother-in-law showed up with a big grin. She hugged Dennis at the front door and gave me a sarcastic smile.
Oh, Parlene, you're here. I heard you're always busy with work, so I assumed you wouldn't be around.
The words, "You probably don't do much housework, do you?" cracked my already fragile heart even more. My malevolent mother-in-law and my unemployed husband. Dennis, I couldn't see any hope for the future. Life with my mother-in-law was harder than I had ever imagined.
Aqua's off of great. When I'd get home late from work, she'd snark, "What are you doing not taking care of the house?" Sense of failing as a wife.
Dennis, far from defending me, would add insult to injury.
I'm letting you live in my house, so at least do the housework.
How easy it would have been to say, "You're not working, so why don't you do it?" But no, that would only lead to more insults and emotional wounds. I didn't even have the energy to argue back anymore. My mother-in-law would just loaf around the house all day and never do any housework, as if it's the norm. Dennis had become so entitled to being taken care of that job, listing magazines had disappeared from our living room. The only thing I could do while dealing with these two burdens was to work relentlessly. I needed money to live. More than that, while engrossed in my job, I could forget the harsh reality. People around me probably found it strange to see me more focused on work than I was before getting married, despite not being married for very long. Occasionally, I felt concerned glances my way, but I was grateful they didn't say anything. If someone shows me kindness now, I'm afraid I won't be able to go on. Those long days of working late, catching the last train home, squeezing in just 5 hours of sleep, and then heading back to the office as soon as dawn breaks. At this point, weekdays and weekends don't even matter. I tape Boust. I do plan on taking a half day off sometime this weekend. And the fact that I have to use that precious half day for a family meeting to tell those two that we can't continue living like this, especially my savings keep dwindling, almost breaks me. I knew my mother-in-law was constantly ordering food delivery, but recently even Dennis has been joining in. They've been indulging in steak and caviar during the day. What's worse, they've even been taking trips together. And for now, they're just day trips, but it could escalate to international travel. I used to put extra money into our joint account, but now that I've realized how much they're spending, I only transfer just enough to cover the monthly withdrawals. In other words, if they keep up this spending, payments will start falling behind, leading to a worst-case scenario. So here we are, the three of us gathered in the living room over the weekend. The two of them, now shadows of their former friendly and genuine selves, are glaring at the papers I've spread out on the coffee table. My mother-in-law squints up at me. It's a breakdown of our income and expenses. We can't continue living like this. I told you I'll pay it all back when I get a job. Just hold on a bit. And the mortgage is just a measly $2,700. I'm letting you live in my house, so don't make a fuss over such a measly sum. My house? You're letting me live here. That's until Measly soon. Words I can't ignore make my lips twitch. That's right. You're the black sheep here, sleeping 5 hours a day, not doing any housework, and living in Dennis's house. Why don't you just leave? Black sheep? Who's the real black sheep here? A laugh escapes my tightened lips. At my mother-in-law's words, everything suddenly becomes inconsequential. And maybe, just maybe, I finally realized that there was never any need to try so hard. All right, no more bending over backward. Thought for these people. I felt like a weight had lifted from my body and soul. Is that okay? Well then, I'll take you up on that and leave. My voice echoed in the once quiet living room. I must be smiling more than I ever have before. Hun, what? Both of them looked stunned, their eyes glued to the coffee table. The twid I smoothly pulled off, and placed on top of the papers was a bundle of divorce papers. Of course, they were already filled out and stamped by me. Here, you sign it too. It'll make your mom feel more secure, won't it?
Here, you sign it too. It'll make your mom feel more secure, won't it?
Fumbling. Dennis picked up the pen from the table. He hesitated for a moment, but was encouraged by his gleeful mother to sign.
I'll be moving out within this month. Don't worry. I'll submit these papers to the court immediately after the movie.
Fine. Goodbye, Black Sheep. However they called me, my heart was unshaken. 2 weeks later, the day had finally come. The weather was perfect, and a pleasant breeze was blowing. It was the perfect day to start a new life.
I need this and that move too. Yes, everything.
As I instructed the movers, I was bustling around what had become someone else's home. After all, it says I had to move everything that was purchased with my money or had a receipt in my name.
Hey, you're taking the coffee table, the sofa, and even the TV. You're stripping the living room bare.
A just sneaky cat thief?
They were both following me around, shouting. To be honest, they were just in the way.
If you say this house under your name is yours, then all of this stuff paid for by me is mine, right?
I finished my last set of instructions, let out a sigh, and turned around. The two of them fell silent at my words, looking at me bewildered. I glanced at them and turned on my heel.
Well then, goodbye.
That was the last time I saw both of them. I completed the move without any issues and immediately submitted the divorce papers. They were promptly accepted, and I was free. Having to share mortgage payments or contribute to a joint account was a relief, and I was surprised at how much money I had left over. I never realized I was earning this much. Over the past year, paydays had been depressing. I was genuinely shocked when I realized my monthly payments. Enter. I found out what happened to my ex-husband Dennis and my former mother-in-law after I left them. Because they lost me as the breadwinner, they started falling behind on all their bills. Demand letters started piling up at their home. Dennis, ever so proud, ignored all of it. He didn't consult with the bank or the IRs. Eventually, they were faced with demands for a lump sum payment, unable to pay, and has borrowed money from a loan shark to cover it. But that wasn't the end of their problems. Realizing you can't avoid repaying loan sharks, Dennis finally swallowed his pride and started doing manual labor at a low-paying job.
Had it not been for his period of unemployment, he could have found a more decent job.
Accession. As for my mother-in-law, her pension wasn't enough to live on, so she started working a part-time job. She's now a cashier and has a reputation as the lady who can do her job right.
Not surprising for someone who is ungrateful, never worked, and just ordered food delivery all the time. But again, that's none of my business. As for me, I'm enjoying my single life. My skin has improved, and even I can tell that my expression has softened. People tell me I smile more now, and that I've become more attractive. I hardly do any overtime work, and I can fully relax on weekends. I even have time to enjoy my hobbies. My life is just like it was before marriage, but because my married life was so miserable, everything now feels incredibly wonderful. I've also been getting along well with a popular guy at work. He'd been interested in me for a while, but hesitated to approach me because I was married. Anyway, life is smooth sailing this time around, that's for sure. I'm feeling great today,